The methods of feeding. A well-balanced ration, improperly fed, will not give most satisfactory results unless a satisfactory method is adopted. So there are different kinds of methods that are to be followed during poultry management. These methods includes different kinds of feeds. First one we deal here is whole grain feeding system. You can see in the diagram, the whole grains can be fed to the chicken. And in this method, birds are allowed to have their required ingredients kept them in separate containers. Then again, grain and mash method. You can see in the diagram, the grains are partially grounded so that they appear like a structure. This method is slightly better than the previous one. It involves feeding of grain mixture along with the balanced mash. Then the third one is all mash method. In this method of feeding, all the feed ingredients are ground, mixed in required proportions, and feed as a single balanced mixture. This method is desirable for all types of poultry grown under litter and as well as cage system. By this, birds cannot have opportunity to have selective eating, and moreover the quality eggs produced are of uniform quality. However, ground feeds are not so palatable and do not retain the nutritive value so well as unground feeds. Now, the other things are the crumble. Crumble. Crumble is a coarse variety of mash with a texture of oatmeal. Crumble is a semi-loose food. It fills the gap between mash and pellets. Shell grit. You can see in the diagram the shells. The shells are very rich source of calcium. This is the mixture of shells given to supplement the calcium needs of the birds. Chicks store the shell grit in their gizzard, which helps in pulverizing the food for easy digestion. Pulverizing means whatever food it takes, the shells that are stored are kept in the gizzard of the hen or chick. They'll help in grinding the food. Chicken scratch. It is a kind of treat for the flock. It consists of mostly corn and other grains. It is given occasionally to change the regular diet. It is eaten happily. The fermented feed. It improves the vitamin and enzyme content of the food. Fermented food is given occasionally. Medicated feed. Sometimes medicines are mixed to prevent diseases along with the food. That is called medicated feed. Pellet method. There are different kinds of forms in which the food is given. The pellet method is most widely used method nowadays. Pellets are made of dry mash under high pressure. Under high pressure. These are machine-made food. These are quite hard and cylindrical shape and are being extensively used in Western countries. Even nowadays, in India also, the pelleted feed is a common thing. The greatest advantage in using pellets is that they will waste in feeding because the pellets are specific and the birds can pick them up and eat. The disadvantage is that pellets are expensive, about 10% to 10% expensive than other feed. So you can see here different types of feed. This is crumble, partially ground material, mash. It's a mixture of partially made material. This is pellet and scratch of grain. Grains directly are given. Restricted and controlled feeding. So birds should not be fed in excess amounts because they may eat but they get some physiological disorders. So to avoid the physiological disorders, The birds are to be fed restrictively. So that kind of method is called restricted and controlled feeding. This is further categorized as quantitative restriction and quantitative restriction feeding method. This method is practiced by limiting the amount of feed daily given to the animals. Here the quantity of feed is reduced below the normal requirements of the birds. This is done by various methods. Quantitative, the lesser amount of food is given than what is actually needed by the bird. Skip a day program. The food is not provided for a day in a planned way. In a week, one day is skipped. No food is given on that day. It controls obesity and fatty liver syndrome in broiler farming. Alternate day feeding. In this feed is provided on one day feed is given, the other day is skipped, and the third day the food is given. Restriction of feeding time. Time is reduced. Feed availability is limited to a particular time. In this, the continuous availability of the feed is reduced to 1 or 2 hours per day, or twice or thrice a day. So this is again another kind of method in which the food given to the birds is reduced. It is reduced because it should not overeat. That is the basic principle behind it. Physical feed restriction. The space available for the bird at the feeder is reduced. Feeder is the place wherein the food or feed is given. That is, if it is reduced, the size of the feeder is reduced, only few birds can go there and get the food. Usually a bird requires 5 centimeters of space at the feeder. By putting the feed in a smaller container which has feeding space lesser than 5 centimeters is called physical feed restriction method. It reduces the availability of the feed. The second one is qualitative restriction feeding method. In this, in the previous one, the quantitative method, that means quantity of the food is reduced. Here, the quality of the food will be reduced. In this method is practiced by reducing the quality of the feed below the standard requirement of the birds. It can be done by including feeds that are lesser in nutrient value. This will prevent obesity in birds. Restricted feeding, the advantages of restricted feeding. A considerable saving on the feed cost is one advantage of it. Only 80% of the calculated feed requirement will be offered. They are likely to consume less feed per dozen eggs even during lay period, irrespective of the availability of the feed. So they usually may take more amounts of feed, but 80% of it is only offered to it. The pullets accumulate less fat, therefore produce more eggs. So they accumulate less fat. When they eat more, the fat gets accumulated in their body. When more fat accumulates in the body, the production of the eggs will be affected. So they accumulate less fat. It is easier to identify weaker birds at an early age during feed restriction. Feed restriction makes a competition among the birds. So certain birds can be very active and get the feed, whereas the weaker birds cannot get the feed by fighting or competing with the others. So those weaker birds can be separated and then they may be sent to the market immediately, or they may be the further investment on the bird can be reduced. Layers feed restricted during growing period has been found to produce heavier eggs than those fed at freely. So this is also another observation. Various types of chicken feeds. Poultry feeding is one of the important aspects of poultry science. Poultry feed, chicken feeds shall be of 5 types. First one is broiler starter feed, BSF. It is chick mash to be fed to chicks intended for meat production up to the age of 4 weeks. Diagram. The broiler starter feed. Then broiler finisher feed, BFF. It is feed to be fed to the chicks intended for meat production from the age of 6 weeks till it is sent to the market. So this is broiler Finisher feed, starter feed, finisher feed. Broilers are fed with starter feed up to 4 weeks, and broilers are given finisher feed till they are sent to the market from 4th week onwards. Various types of chicken feeds. The third type is chick feed. It is a feed to be fed to the chicks, not intended for meat production up to the age of 8 weeks. So for layers, usually layers or brooders, that is, it is given to the chicks up to 8 weeks. Up to 8 weeks. Then again, growing chicken feed GCF, a ration to be CF, a ration to be fed to the growing chickens from 8 to 20 weeks or until laying commences. So this is again 8 to 20 weeks they are fed. It is usually for either layers or brooders. Laying chicken feed LCF, a ration to be fed to laying birds from 20 week onwards or after laying commences. Laying means laying of the eggs. It is further divided into phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 of types of feeds as we have dealt in the previous chapter. Brooder chicken feed. This is usually not required for the regular farmer. A ration to be fed to the breeding chicken. It is given in hatcheries, not at farm level usually. Breeders or the birds, male and female birds which lay, which undertake the reproduction and lay the eggs. Such birds require as a separate kind of food that is called brooder chicken feed. Thank you.